The envelope still smelled like ink when my son asked if his kids would split everything evenly. Still, I passed the potatoes and said nothing, as if legacy was a side dish. As they laughed about vacation homes, my eyes stayed on the corner of the will just signed. The same grandchildren who forgot my birthday had already planned to gut my house. That's when he opened it and went pale at the name he didn't see. I left it all to the nurse who sat with me while they didn't. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The first time I heard my life divided up like a real estate brochure, I was cutting into rubbery scrambled eggs at the Riverbend Country Club. I'd chosen a corner table by the window where the marsh grass shimmered under the Savannah sun. At my age, you learn to sit where you can see both the door and something beautiful. I saw Nathan and Cassandra before they saw me. He walked in first, my stepson, 47 now, still wearing that casual entitlement like a tailored jacket. Cassandra floated beside him, all smooth hair and expensive perfume, her phone in her hand like a second face. The hostess leaned in. "Is that your mother?" "Stepmother," Cassandra corrected automatically. "Evelyn." I looked down at my menu. I knew the rule: if I didn't wave, they wouldn't feel obligated to come over. Obligations are funny like that, they only travel one way in this family. They were seated 2 tables behind me, partly hidden by a column, far enough to pretend I couldn't hear, close enough that I could. "So," Cassandra said, her voice low but clear, "what are we thinking once all this becomes ours?" "All this?" I stirred cream into my coffee, listening to the tiny clink of the spoon instead of the pound of my heart. "The house is the big piece," Nathan replied. "Then whatever's in her accounts, the shop building, if we play it right, will be set." Cassandra gave a light, delighted laugh. "We'll probably sell the house, it's too old-fashioned anyway." I froze. My house? The one I scrubbed on my hands and knees. The one where I learned the schedule of a 12-year-old boy who wasn't mine and tried to become something like a mother without stepping on the memory of the one who came before me. Too old-fashioned. "We'll do something more modern," Cassandra went on. "Open concept, clean lines, we can keep a few antiques, the good ones, the rest we'll donate or sell. Fresh start." "Mom won't care," Nathan said. "She's practical, Dad would have wanted it to come to me anyway." I cut into my eggs and watched the yolk run too fast across the plate. "Your father would have wanted you to visit me after they cut open my hip," I thought. "He would have wanted you to sit in that stiff hospital chair and hold my hand like I held yours after your first broken arm." Nathan hadn't visited once. Not when they wheeled me in for surgery, not when I came home with a walker and a bag of prescriptions. My employee, my unofficial daughter Maya, had done that. She'd set up pillows, labeled my pills, sat on my couch until she was sure I could stand without falling. Nathan had sent a thumbs-up emoji. I set my fork down carefully, the way I used to set down scalpels in the operating room, steady, controlled. Then I stood and walked past their table. Cassandra looked up, startled. "Oh, Evelyn, we didn't see you there." "I know," I said calmly. "You were busy making plans." Nathan flushed. "We were just." "Enjoy your brunch," I smiled, smooth as glass. "Try the eggs, they're forgettable." Outside, the humid air wrapped around me like a warm hand that didn't care whether I liked it or not. My hip ached as I walked to the car. I didn't let myself limp until I was alone in the driveway. The house looked different when I pulled up. Same white columns, same black shutters, same oak tree bowing over the lawn, but now I could hear Cassandra's voice echoing over it all. "We'll probably sell the house." Inside, the quiet was thick. I lowered myself into my chair by the front window and stared at the photographs on the wall, my husband in uniform, Nathan at 12, me in my nurse's whites. The back door opened with a familiar creak. "Ms. Evelyn," Maya called, "I brought that chamomile you like." She stepped into the doorway with a steaming mug, eyes soft with concern. "You okay? You look pale." I took the cup, wrapping my fingers around the heat. "They were at the club," I said. "Nathan and Cassandra talking about after." "After what?" she asked carefully. After me, I answered. The words tasted strange but right. They've already decided what they're going to take. Maya's jaw tightened. What are you going to do? I looked out at the roses my husband and I planted 40 years ago, still blooming without anyone's permission. I don't know yet, I said slowly, feeling something sharp and TD rise in my chest, but I do know this. She leaned in. What? They think I owe them everything, I whispered, and I'm starting to realize I don't owe them a thing. They showed up on a Tuesday, the sky the color of dishwater and the air heavy enough to press on my bad hip. I heard the tires on the gravel before I saw them. When I pushed the curtain aside, Nathan's SUV was already in the drive, Cassandra stepping out with a bottle of red held high like a prize. Of course, I muttered, no call, no warning. Maya was wiping down the kitchen counter. She followed my gaze, her mouth flattening when she recognized them. You want me to head out? I want you to stay, I said. People behave better when there are witnesses. The doorbell rang twice, impatient. I opened it to Cassandra's brightest performance smile. Evelyn, we were just in the area, she sang. Thought we'd surprise you. You have, I said. I didn't move aside right away, let them feel the edge of it, then I stepped back. Come in. Nathan leaned in with the bottle. Brought you some wines, thought you'd like it. I'm sure you did, I replied. I took it and set it on the entry table without looking at the label. They moved into the living room like realtors at an open house, eyes flicking over walls, corners, value. Cassandra's fingers brushed my curtains. Oh, you still have these, she said. I kept telling Nathan I don't know how you've resisted changing them, they're so classic. Some things last, I said, if you let them. I didn't offer coffee or fresh biscuits like I usually would. I went to the kitchen, pulled out yesterday's soup and set it on the stove. Maya watched me. Leftovers, she whispered. They came unannounced, I said. They'll be fine. A few minutes later, I set 2 bowls in front of them. No garnish, no fuss. You didn't have to go to any trouble, Nathan said. I didn't, I answered. We ate in the kind of silence that has too many words stuffed behind it. Finally, Cassandra dabbed her lips and cleared her throat. So, Evelyn, have you been keeping up with all your paperwork, wills, accounts, that sort of thing? We just want to make sure you're protected. Nathan jumped in. Yeah, just so everything's clear, no confusion later. Later, after the same shadow, new wording. I took a slow sip of water. From the doorway, Maya stood with a dish towel in her hands, watching them like they might break something. My affairs, I said, are in order enough for me. It might help if we talk to your attorney, Cassandra pressed, just to understand the plan. I smiled, small and sharp. I already have a plan, you're just not part of it. Nathan blinked. What does that mean? I pushed my chair back and stood. It means I'm tired. They took the hint eventually. There were awkward hugs at the door, promises to do this again soon. When the car finally disappeared down the street, the house exhaled. Maya came to stand beside me at the window. They weren't visiting, she said, they were measuring. I know, I watched the empty driveway, my heart felt oddly steady. Maya. Yes. I think, I said, feeling the decision settle like a stone in calm water. It's time I updated exactly who thinks this place will be theirs. Loretta's office sat over a nail salon that smelled like acetone and coconut. No sign, no logo, just a narrow stairwell and a scuffed door with a brass 3A that had seen better paint. She opened it before I could knock. You're early, she said. That usually means one of 2 things, fear or decision. Decision, I answered. Fear can tag along if it wants. She snorted, come in then. The room was small but sharp, oak desk, 2 chairs, file cabinet, 1 window onto a brick wall, no fluff, just paper and consequence. On the desk waited a stack of folders with my name on top. Loretta tapped them. All right, Evie, before we start, are you sure? I sat, bones grateful for the chair, heart surprisingly steady. I'm not angry, I said, I'm done. That got the briefest flicker of approval from her. She opened the first folder. House is still set to pass mostly to Nathan under the old will. You wanted simple back then. I wanted peace, I corrected, didn't get it. So her pen hovered. What happens to the house now? Maya gets it, I said. Saying it out loud felt like finally putting weight on a leg I'd been babying, outright. And Nathan, she asked. Nathan has what he's chosen, I said quietly. He just doesn't have me on layaway anymore. She made a note. We moved on. Insurance policies, she said, flipping pages. Both list Nathan as primary. Maya shows up here. She tapped another document. Contingent caretaker on your medical power of attorney, second place on the hard parts, nowhere on the money. Fix it, I said. Maya is primary beneficiary on the insurance, and put her first on medical and financial decisions. Take Nathan off. Loretta's eyes met mine over her glass. That's a big shift. So was learning who really shows up when you can't drive yourself home, I replied. Her pen scratched across the forms. It sounded like cutting thread. Anything else, she asked. Yes, I leaned forward. I want something in there that says if they try to fight this, they lose everything they might have had. A no contest clause, she said slowly. If they challenge the will, they forfeit any share. Good, my voice came out calm. If they're going to treat my death like a strategy game, they can play it without my money. Loretta studied me for a long, measuring beat. This will burn when it lands, she said. In that family, in that house, you ready for that? I thought of Cassandra's hand on my curtains like she already owned them, Nathan saying later like it was scheduled. Then I thought of Maya's knock on my back door. Yes, I said, let it burn. I signed where she pointed, my name looping across page after page. When it was done, Loretta stacked the papers neat and final. There, she said, on record, your life now goes to the person who actually lived it with you. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Nathan lit the screen. Hey, we should talk soon. Got some ideas about the future. For the first time in years, I smiled without softness. Oh, Nathan, I thought, slipping the phone away, so do I. Nathan's house looked like a magazine spread, white siding, trimmed hedges, little pumpkins lined up along the steps like they'd been auditioned. Maya pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. You sure you don't want me to come in? She asked. They didn't invite you, I said. They invited the idea of me. I unbuckled my seatbelt. That's enough of a crowd. Text me when you're done, she said, or when you've had enough, whichever comes first. Those will be the same moment, I told her and stepped out. Inside, the house hummed, football on the TV, laughter in the kitchen, a playlist trying too hard in the background. Cassandra's voice carried over it all, directing, approving, correcting. Nathan opened the door before I knocked a second time. Hey, Evelyn, you made it. I have a remarkable talent for following directions, I said. Happy Thanksgiving. He kissed the air near my cheek and stepped aside. Come on in, we're just putting everything out. The dining room table was set like a catalog, cream runner, gold chargers matching napkin rings, place cards with names carefully inked. My card waited at the far end by the sideboard, close enough to see, far enough not to matter. Evelyn, Cassandra swept in, wiping non-existent flour from her hands. You look great, that coat is so classic. Code for older than you, D-by, I said lightly. She laughed as if I'd complimented her. Make yourself comfortable, we'll be ready in a few. I stood in the archway and watched. People drifted from room to room, balancing drinks and small talk. I heard about new cars, promotions, a trip someone was planning to Italy. No one asked how the hip was. No one mentioned the shop. I could have been an extra in the background of their holiday. Grandma Eve, a soft voice said. Hallie appeared beside me, cheeks flushed from carrying dishes. She still smelled faintly of whatever shampoo she'd used since middle school. Come sit, that chair doesn't look like it's forgiving. I let her guide me to my seat. You're the only one around here with sense, I told her. She lowered her voice as she helped me with the chair. Are you okay? 2 small words, the only ones that landed all afternoon. I squeezed her fingers. I am now. We settled. Nathan tapped his glass. All right, guys, before we eat, Cass wants to say a few words. Of course she did. Cassandra rose, smile turned just a little softer for the occasion. Thank you all for being here, she began. When I think about Thanksgiving, I think about tradition, about legacy, about what we stand to preserve as a family. Legacy again, they loved that word as long as they got to define it. We've worked hard to build a life that honors where we came from, she went on, while also moving forward. This home, these holidays, the way we show up for each other, that's what we're preserving. I took a measured sip of wine, let it burn just a little. Food started moving around the table, turkey, dressing, potatoes whipped within an inch of their lives. I passed dishes, smiled when someone made eye contact, nodded in the right places. No one asked, "How are you really?" No one said, "How's the pain?" or "How's business?" The closest anyone got was, "Traffic bad getting here." Halfway through the meal, one of Cassandra's friends leaned in her direction. "I have to say, I love your taste. I cannot wait to see what you do with Evelyn's place someday. That house is a dream." Cassandra laughed, easy and bright. "I know, right? The bones are amazing. It's just very old school." "What about all those antiques?" the friend asked. "There's so much of it." "We'll probably donate most of it," Cassandra said, casual as if she were talking about old sweaters. "I mean, who wants dusty old furniture? We'll keep a few pieces that work, but the rest we'll find a charity or something. Fresh start." A few people chuckled, nodded along. Across the table, Hallie went still, her fork hovering over her plate. Her eyes slid to me, searching. I raised my glass and smiled, small, polite, iron. I didn't say a word. No one noticed I'd stopped eating. No one saw me cataloging faces, filing away, who laughed, who looked uncomfortable, who didn't hear at all. They thought they were talking about someday. They didn't know someday was already written, filed, notarized over a nail salon that smelled like acetone. Nathan lifted his glass. "To family," he said. "To family," they echoed. I took another sip, the wine going down smoother this time. In my head, though, I wasn't at their table anymore. I was back at my own, seeing exactly who would sit there when I was gone and who would only ever circle it in their imaginations. I smiled into my glass as a new, quiet certainty settled in my chest. The next holiday they tried to claim my legacy, they wouldn't be carving turkey. They'd be carving up the truth I'd already left behind. Thanksgiving at Nathan's felt like walking into a brochure. White siding, perfect wreath, little pumpkins lined up like they'd been interviewed for the job. Maya idled at the curb. "Last chance to fake food poisoning," she said. "I'm a retired nurse," I told her. "I'd make it too believable." I patted her hand. "I'll text you when I've had enough." Inside, the house hummed football from the living room, a playlist trying to sound expensive, the clatter of dishes. Cassandra's voice floated over all of it, giving instructions like a cruise director. Nathan opened the door, towel over his shoulder. "Hey, Evelyn, you made it." "I respond well to calendar invites," I said. "Happy Thanksgiving." He kissed the air near my cheek and moved on before I finished unbuttoning my coat. The dining room looked like a catalog spread. Long table, gold chargers, identical napkin rings, place cards in careful script. My name waited at the far end near the kitchen door, out of the way, present but peripheral like a disclaimer in fine print. "Evelyn," Cassandra swept in, apron spotless. "You look great, that scarf is so classic." "Meaning you wouldn't borrow it," I said mildly. She laughed like we'd shared a compliment. "We'll start in just a minute, help yourself to wine." That at least was a sensible suggestion. I was halfway through pouring when I heard, "Grandma Ev," Hallie, cheeks flushed, hair in a loose bun, a stack of plates in her arms. "Come sit, that chair doesn't look like it likes people." "You're the only one here who remembers I have bones," I said. She leaned in as she helped me sit. "Are you okay?" 2 words, the only ones I'd been waiting for. I squeezed her hand, more than they think. We'd barely settled when Nathan tapped his glass. "All right, everybody, Cass wants to say something before we eat." Of course she did. Cassandra stood, one hand on Nathan's shoulder, the other around her wineglass. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "When I think of Thanksgiving, I think of tradition, legacy, what we stand to preserve as a family." Legacy again, they loved that word as long as it came with square footage. "We've worked hard to honor what came before us," she continued, "while building something new. This home, these holidays, that's our way of preserving the Blake story." Food started moving, Turkey, dressing, potatoes passed around me like I was part of the centerpiece. People asked about traffic, football, the weather. No one asked about my hip. No one asked about the shop. I could have been a neighbor they'd invited out of politeness. Midway through, one of Cassandra's friends leaned toward her. "I drove by Evelyn's house last week," she said. "It's incredible. I can't wait to see what you guys do with it someday." Cassandra laughed, bright and easy. "I know, the bones are amazing. It's just very old school right now." "What about all those antiques?" the friend asked. "There's so much." "We'll probably donate most of it," Cassandra said, waving her fork. "I mean, who wants dusty old furniture? We'll keep a few pieces, but the rest, some charity can figure it out. Fresh start." Across the table, Hallie went still, eyes snapping to mine. I lifted my glass and smiled. Small, polite, sharp enough to cut. I didn't say a word. They went back to talking about someday, about plans and makeovers and everything they'd do when my life finally turned into their project. No one there knew the papers were already signed. That dusty old furniture was protected in legal language fiercer than anything I'd ever spoken out loud. Nathan raised his glass. "To family," he said. "To family," they echoed. I drank with them, wine cool in my throat, and thought, this one." Because sitting at their perfect table, surrounded by all the words they didn't say, I realized something simple and devastating. They weren't preserving a legacy. They were assuming one. And I'd already given it away. The day everything changed, nothing in the house looked different. Same morning light through the lace, same clock ticking in the hall, same ache in my hip when I bent to reach the lower cabinet. Only my phone was new in the room, buzzing across the table with Loretta's name. "It's done," she said when I answered. "No greeting. Deed recorded, insurance updated, banks notified, power of attorney switched. Quiet filings, no alerts. If a piano drops on your head today, Maya's the one the system calls." I looked around my living room, my husband's portrait, the rose print sofa, the rug Hallie spilled juice on when she was 8. "Just like that?" I asked. "Evie," she said, "you spent 40 years keeping strangers alive in chaos. You've earned one clean, controlled move. This is it." After we hung up, the house felt lighter, not emptier, just finally aligned with what had already been true for years. Maya came in the back door an hour later, cheeks pink from the wind, arms full of shop paperwork. "Holiday numbers," she said, dropping them on the table. "And before you ask, no, I did not let that man put his coffee on the mahogany dresser. I value my life." "Sit," I said. She froze. "You're scaring me. Is it your hip, your heart?" "My paperwork," I said. "I changed it." "Good," she said quickly. "You've been saying." "Maya," I cut her off, "I put your name on everything, the house, the policies, the accounts. When I go, it all comes to you." Her mouth opened, closed. "Number Evelyn, you can't, Nathan." "Nathan has had me for 40 years, I said. "You had me when it counted." Tears hit her eyes so fast she didn't have time to blink them away. "I was supposed to be backup," she whispered. "The person who brings soup, not the person on the deed." "You're not a placeholder," I told her. "You're the person who showed up." While she tried to breathe around that, somewhere across town Nathan and Cassandra sat in their accountant's glossy office. "Just so we're prepared," Cassandra was saying, legs crossed just so. "When the time comes, what kind of liquid assets are we talking about with Evelyn's estate?" "Assuming a standard structure," the accountant said. "Probably substantial. With you as the only child, Nathan, it should be fairly straightforward." They both smiled like they'd just been handed a weather report that promised clear skies. Back home, I started giving the weather to myself. The neighbor who'd driven me to the ER got the Royal Dalton vase she'd admired for a decade. The young nurse who sent me a thank you card after my retirement got my old nursing pin and a silver pillbox. The mailman who carried my packages to the kitchen got the brass heron letter opener. Little storms of gratitude mailed out, delivered by hand. Cassandra noticed quickly. She showed up one afternoon in a cream coat, eyes scanning the thinner shelves. "Doing some decluttering?" she asked, too bright. "I'm lightening the house," I said. Her gaze landed on an empty spot in the hutch. "Some of these pieces, we always assumed they'd stay in the family. They are, I said, just not the branch you had in mind. Her smile tightened. What exactly are you doing, Evelyn? I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and met her eyes. It's my turn to choose, I said. And if we don't agree with your choices, she asked. I set the glass down, feeling the weight of every signature Loretta had filed. Then, I said calmly, you'll learn something new about what you were never promised. For the first time since I'd known her, Cassandra didn't have a comeback. She just looked at my walls like they were slipping out of her hands. And I knew it was only a matter of time before she went looking for the truth in all the wrong places. They picked the kind of place that pretends to be casual but charges you for the Ice River Oaks Bistro halfway between my house and Nathan's office. Neutral ground, Nathan had texted, as if there was anything neutral left between us. They were already seated when I walked in. Nathan stood halfway, then sank back down. Cassandra didn't bother. Evelyn, she said, bright, you look great. I look like I found the door, I replied. That's enough for today. I sat, we did the small talk dance. Work, the weather, Hallie's classes, not a single question about my hip, my shop, my life, just noise, fluff, packing peanuts before the real delivery. When the server left with our order, the air changed. So, Nathan said, fingers tracing the condensation on his glass, we just wanted to talk about the future a little, make sure we're all on the same page. Cassandra leaned in, we're not prying, we just want to understand what the plan is with the house, the shop, everything, for taxes, for Hal. Lie for when the time comes. I took a drink of water, set the glass down carefully. I already have a plan, I said, you're just not in it. Cassandra laughed sharp, you're joking. I rarely do. Nathan stared at me, Evelyn, come on, I'm your son. You're my husband's son, I corrected. I honored that, I raised you, I stood in for your mother when it suited everyone, that doesn't mean you inherit my life by default. His jaw flexed. Cassandra jumped in, this isn't like you, someone's gotten in your ear, that shop girl Maya, of course you feel grateful, she's younger, she's around, she makes you feel needed. But this is your estate, Evelyn, you're being manipulated. I felt something old and sharp rise in me. I've been manipulated before by grief, by guilt, by people who counted my money louder than they counted my pills. Never again. You're going to cut Nathan out, Cassandra demanded, after everything his father. Your husband asked me to take care of him, I said. I did, homework, broken bones, cheap tuxedos, job rejections, that bill is paid. The server arrived with our salads, set them down into the middle of the wreck. We love you, Nathan said quietly, last card on the table. You love what you think is coming, I answered. You love the version of me that keeps the house dusted in your imagination until you're ready to sell it. Color rose in Cassandra's cheeks. People are going to see this for what it is. I hope so, I said. I hope they see exactly who showed up while I was alive and who only showed up when they smelled an ending. I pulled the leather check holder toward me, slid my card in, and set it back in the center of the table. You don't have to pay, Nathan said, thrown. I know, I said, I just don't want you mistaking this conversation for something you're owed. I stood, my hip complaining, my spine knot. Evelyn, we're not finished, Nathan said. Oh, Nathan, I replied, soft but final, you're just realizing the story you wrote in your head doesn't match the paperwork. I rested my hand on the table between them for a beat. Start adjusting, I said. You're not the beneficiaries in this chapter, you're just supporting characters. Then I walked out, leaving their untouched salads behind. Outside, my phone buzzed. Maya, you good? I looked back at the bistro door, knowing the next time it opened, they wouldn't be asking questions. They'd be looking for a way to take back what I'd already given away. I heard my house was for sale while I was still living in it. I was at the mailbox when Margaret from 2 doors down called my name. She stood at her rose bushes, pruning shears in hand, worry already written across her face. Evelyn, I ran into Cassandra yesterday, she said. She was at that new cafe with a woman from Coldwell Realty. Your name came up. My stomach tightened. Did it now? She told the agent you were stepping back soon, Margaret said carefully, that they wanted to be ready to move quickly when the time came. The realtor asked if you'd signed anything and Cassandra said, not formally, but it's just a matter of time. She hesitated. I assumed you'd told her to start looking, but then I thought you would have said something. I looked past her at my house, white columns, black shutters, brick path I'd swept for decades. They said I was stepping back soon, I repeated. Margaret nodded, like it was already decided. Thank you, I said, for telling me what they didn't. Inside, I shut the door and turned the deadbolt like I was locking out a storm. Then I walked. The front parlor where my husband fell asleep in his chair every Sunday. My hand skimmed the mantel. This is mine, I murmured. The dining room, all those potlucks and birthdays stacked in the air. I touched each chair. This is mine. The kitchen drawer that sticks in summer, the hallway scuffed by Nathan's teenage shoes, the little back bedroom where Maya once napped between double shifts. Every wall I laid my palm against, the same quiet verdict, this is mine, not a listing, not a projection on Cassandra's mood board. By the time I reached the back door, my hip was throbbing. I sat, took out my phone, and called Loretta. They're circulating my house, I said, realtor and all. I want it welded shut. Trust, she asked. Restricted, I said, no sale, no loan, no nothing without Maya's signature, not just mine, hers, now and after I'm gone. Loretta whistled softly. All right then, we'll make it the legal equivalent of Fort Knox. That evening there was a knock at the front door, hesitant, not entitled. Hallie. She stepped inside, eyes wide, taking in the house like it might disappear. Are they really trying to sell this? She whispered. They're trying to claim what was never theirs, I said. Her throat worked. This place is you. I went to the hall desk, took out an envelope with her name on it, and pressed it into her hand. What is it? She asked. A letter, I said, for when you understand everything. Her fingers tightened around it. Should I read it now? Not yet, I said. Keep it safe, away from them. She nodded, serious in a way that didn't match her 19 years. And as she slipped the envelope into her bag, I realized I just armed her with the truth. The kind that might save her from her parents one day. Or force her to choose which house she really belonged to when the fight finally came. I set the table the way I liked it, not the way Cassandra would have approved of it. Mismatched plates, old linen runner, candles that had already seen Christmases and blackouts. This smells illegal, Loretta said as she walked in, shrugging off her coat. If this is takeout, lie to me. It's Maya, I said, she's showing off. In the kitchen, Maya was barefoot, hair up, stirring a pan with the focus of a surgeon. Garlic, lemon, and rosemary hung in the air. You sit, she told me. You've done your time over a stove. Janice and Carla arrived next, two women who'd once held the other end of stretchers with me, now a little slower, still sharp-eyed. The house felt different with them here, less like a museum, more like it was back on duty. We sat, no speeches, no place cards, just plates filled and passed, people reaching for what they wanted without asking permission. This is what Thanksgiving should have been, Janice said through a mouthful of chicken. No small talk, just carbs and people who know what you look like at 3 a.m. Loretta pointed her fork at me. Tell Maya the story about the first night in this house. I rolled my eyes, but they waited. Roof leaked, oven broke, Nathan sulked because his friends had carpet, your grandfather looked like he'd made a terrible mistake. I smiled at the memory. So I pulled a double shift, learned to strip wallpaper from a library book and made it work. He brought home paint, I brought home overtime pay. Carla shook her head. Men sign the paperwork, women keep the roof out of your cereal. We clinked glasses at that, cheap wine and old stems. To found family, Loretta said. To what you build when nobody's watching, I added. Later, when dishes were stacked and the others bundled up to leave, Maya lingered. One more thing, she said, pulling a flat package from her bag. Don't get mad, it's not expensive. Inside the paper was a framed photograph, my husband sitting on the shop's front steps, mid-laugh. In the corner, a blurred version of me reaching out with keys. At the bottom, in neat black letters. She kept it all going. My throat closed. Where? Hallie took it, Maya said. Years ago she thought you wouldn't like it. I did. I set it on my nightstand later next to my worn blue journal. Under the glow of the lamp I wrote. Tonight my table was full of people who were there when it mattered. I am not a placeholder, I am not a line item, I am not invisible, not anymore. I underlined the last 3 words. The phone rang. Nathan. I answered. Aunt Lisa just told me you had some family dinner and didn't even invite us, he snapped. You're turning all of this into a circus, Evelyn. I glanced at the photo, at my own handwriting. No, I said, I finally stopped being part of yours. I hung up. The phone lit up again, buzzing over and over on the nightstand. And as I watched his name flash, one question settled in my chest. When he realized charm and guilt weren't working anymore, what was he going to try next? The knock this time wasn't neighborly, it rattled the front door. I wiped coffee off my hand and opened it to a Chatham County deputy holding a thick white envelope. Ms. Blake, he asked. That depends, I said. Am I going to like what's in there? He didn't answer. You've been served, ma'am. The envelope was heavier than it looked. At the table, I slid a butter knife under the flap and started reading. Petition for pre-death review of estate instruments. Alleged incapacity, undue influence by non-family caregiver. Petitioners Nathan Blake and Cassandra Blake. My own name looked foreign on the page. I called Loretta. They filed, I said. They want the court to freeze my estate, make Nathan temporary guardian so assets don't get diverted. Loretta snorted, translated, they didn't like your lunch speech. I'm not settling, I said. If they want this on paper, we'll do it on paper. Good, she replied, because our answer is simple, the documents are airtight, and you're not dead yet. 2 weeks later, Maya sat in a gray conference room under floor. Scent lights, a recorder on the table, Cassandra glaring from the corner. For the record, their lawyer said, your name and relationship to Ms. Blake. Maya Coleman, she replied. I work for her, I care about her, in that order on payday. He tried to turn her into a schemer. How often are you in her home? Most days, usually because she insists on feeding me. Do you have access to her finances? I can pay shop bills, that's it. Did you encourage her to change her will in your favor? No, she said. She told me what she'd already done. I told her she didn't have to. He smiled like he'd trapped her. And you stand to inherit a substantial estate now. Yes. You think that's fair? What I think, Maya said calmly, doesn't matter. It's her choice. I'd be here if she left me nothing. Loretta slid a fat folder across the table. 10 years of medical records, Your Honor, she said later at the hearing. Cognitive screens, clean, functioning independent adult, not a hint of incapacity except maybe on the part of the petitioners. Their lawyer talked about sudden changes, vulnerability, dependence. Loretta opened another folder. Here are notes from estate meetings 1510 and 5 years ago where Ms. Blake says, and I quote, if I ever leave anything, it'll be to the people who actually show up. This was before Ms. Coleman ever worked for her. Same sentiment, different decade. In court, the judge stacked the files, took off his glasses, and looked straight at Nathan and Cassandra. What I see, he said, is not evidence of incapacity. I see evidence of disappointment. Ms. Blake is competent. Her documents are valid. Your petition is dismissed. His gavel came down just like that. Outside in the hallway, Cassandra stepped close enough that her perfume stung. This isn't over, she hissed. You're right, I said, but the part where you use the law as a crowbar, that ended today. Over her shoulder, I saw Hallie by the door, fingers resting on the bag where I knew my letter was hidden. Her eyes met mine, uncertain but open. Nathan walked past his daughter without looking at her. And as I watched them leave in 2 different directions, a colder thought settled in my chest. If they'd go this far while I was still breathing, what would they try when I finally couldn't answer the door myself? It started as a tickle in my throat and turned into a 4-day reminder that my lungs were not what they used to be. By the second night, the house sounded different. No TV, no radio, just my own coughing echoing off the walls. Fever does strange things to time. The hours stretched, broke, doubled back. At one point I woke up convinced my husband was in the hallway, only to realize it was the grandfather clock chiming 3. My phone stayed quiet. No call from Nathan, no text from Cassandra. Apparently, if the court said I was competent, they decided I was also immortal. Maya, on the other hand, treated it like an ICU rotation. She showed up the first morning with a thermos and a frown. "You sound like a car that didn't pass emissions," she said, dropping her bag. "Bed now." "I'm fine," I rasped. She raised an eyebrow. "You sound like you swallowed sandpaper. Sit down before I call Loretta and make her threaten you with paperwork." I sat. She took my temperature, made disapproving nurse noises, then ladled soup from the thermos into a bowl, steam curling up in front of my face. She'd thought of everything: tissues, cough drops, the good honey, the trash can pulled closer to the bed. "Job," I croaked. "Covered," she said. "I put a sign on the door: owner has the plague, come back tomorrow." "You didn't." "I absolutely did, they loved it." For the next 3 days, she was there more than she was. She'd open the curtains in the morning, check the heater, twist the old thermostat just so until the air kicked on. "Who else knows how to hit it exactly there?" she said, knocking the panel with 2 practiced fingers. "No one," I said. "That's the problem, isn't it?" On day 3, between doses and dosing, I pulled out my folder from the nightstand. Healthcare proxy, emergency contact forms. I took a pen and drew a line through Nathan's name where it still lingered on some old hospital document. At the top, in firm, slow letters, I wrote, "Primary, Maya Coleman, only. No alternates, no if unavailable. If something happened to me, the person who showed up when I had a cold would be the one in the room when it was worse." My phone buzzed. "Hallie, I told them to go see you. I said you were sick. They didn't. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, the fever making the letters blur. "Me, that tells you everything you need to know." 3 dots blinked, then disappeared. Whatever she wanted to say next, she swallowed. That afternoon, there was a softer knock at the door. Carla, in a sensible coat, holding a plastic bag and an envelope. "You sound like death warmed over," she said, kissing my forehead anyway. "I.B. Rot contraband." The bag held orange juice, ginger ale, and crackers. The envelope was heavier. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I've been meaning to give you," she said. "I told my students about the court mess. One of them said people forget the lives nurses leave behind." It got me thinking. Inside was a stack of cards, different handwriting, different stationery, some names I recognized, some I didn't. "You held my hand when my family couldn't be there. You made me feel like more than a chart. You changed my life." I read 3 before my throat closed for reasons that had nothing to do with the cold. "I put a note on the board," Carla said. "Asked if anyone had a nurse who still lived in their memory. Your name came up more than once." I pressed my fingers to the words. They blurred and reformed. "They remember," I whispered. Carla squeezed my shoulder. "Of course they do. You don't disappear just because some people decided you're only visible with a will attached." After she left, the house was quiet again, but different, less hollow. I lay back against the pillows, surrounded by tissues, cards, and the faint scent of Maya's soup, and thought. If this is what my life looks like when I'm weak, who shows up, who doesn't, who remembers? Then when the real sickness comes, I already know exactly who I want standing at the end of my bed. And exactly whose faces I don't want anywhere near the door. I found out they were planning my funeral while I was dusting a shelf of chipped teacups. I was unlocking the shop when Margaret hurried down the sidewalk, visor crooked, worry all over her face. "I swear I don't like being the messenger," she said, "but I saw Cassandra at the fancy florist yesterday. She was talking about arrangements for when Evelyn passes." My hand stilled on the key. "Arrangements," I repeated. "She told the owner you'd had a rough year and they just wanted to be ready," Margaret went on. "Said you were stepping into your final season with grace. The florist asked if you were in hospice. Cassandra said not yet, but we're bracing ourselves." I looked past her at my shop window, my reflection staring back, very much upright. "Thank you," I said. "Always good to know when the flowers are being picked out." Sunday at church, I heard the encore. I sat in the pew where my husband and I used to sit. After the service in the fellowship hall, I heard Cassandra's voice rise over the clink of coffee cups. Just trying to manage the grief before it hits, she told a sympathetic circle. It's been so hard watching Evelyn fade, we've had to start thinking about arrangements. Legacy, it's a lot for Nathan. Bless your heart, someone murmured. I watched her accept condolences for a loss that hadn't happened, dabbing dry eyes with a tissue she didn't need. I sipped my weak coffee and thought, if they want to rehearse my funeral, they can do it without me. I'd rather spend my time proving I was still here. 2 weeks later, my antique shop was packed, not with vultures but with neighbors. A banner hung over the counter, Benefit for Savannah Women's Shelter. Maya ran the register, Carla and Janice worked the donation table, Loretta terrorized the silent auction bidders with a clipboard. People I hadn't seen in years showed up. Former patients' families pressed my hands, told stories I'd forgotten. Hallie slipped in alone, hugged me like she meant it, and whispered, "You look powerful." The local paper sent a kid reporter. Why this? He asked. Because women end up in shelters when someone else decides what their life is worth, I said. I've had enough of that. The article ran 2 days later. Margaret brought me the paper like a casserole. There I was on the community page, mid-laugh in my shop. The headline read, Blake family matriarch still defining community strength. Matriarch, not patient, not burden. I cut it out, framed it, and set it on the mantel beside my husband's folded flag. Look at that, I told him. They finally put the right name under the picture. My phone buzzed. Cassandra's post glowed on the screen, a moody photo of a candle, captioned, "Some people don't know when to let go. Grief is hard enough without denial." Hearts and prayers in the comments, like a digital wake. I looked from the post to the framed article, to the flag that had outlived every version of the Blake men. Then I set the phone face down. If Cassandra wanted to mourn a version of me that lay quietly and waited to be claimed, she'd have to do it without my participation. Because standing there between the flag and my own headline, I realized, if they were already writing my obituary in public, it was time I started planning exactly how little of my actual ending they were going to be allowed to touch. I started with the things no one ever asked about. Not the big showpieces Cassandra drooled over, the highboy, the dining set, the clocks. I went to the sideboard drawer that stuck halfway, the one everyone else thought just held napkins. Okay, Maya said, legal pad ready. You call it, I'll write it. I set a small silver locket on the table. Inside, my mother's face, soft and serious. The clasp had been repaired twice. Silver heart locket, I said. My mother's goes to Carla's oldest. She's the only one who ever asked who that was. Maya wrote, blinking faster than usual. We fell into a rhythm. A chipped floral teapot from our first apartment, Janice. Brass candlesticks from a yard sale, the neighbor who always brought soup. My old recipe box, the women's shelter kitchen. For each, I wrote a note, a memory, a reason, a thank you, folded, slipped under tissue paper, little detonations of truth waiting for the right hands. This is a lot, Maya murmured. This is inventory with context, I said, something accountants never factor in. Later, I opened the small jewelry box tucked behind sweaters. My nursing pin lay beside your grandfather's brass compass, the one that had crossed more oceans than Nathan ever would. Maya looked up. Who's that for? Hallie, I said. She deserves something that points somewhere. I slid both into a velvet pouch, pulled a card toward me. Hallie, I wrote. For when you need to remember you come from people who worked and people who found their way, and you get to do both. Love, Grandma Ev. My hand shook just enough to make the ink thicker in spots. Nathan doesn't get anything, Maya asked, voice careful. He got a childhood I didn't owe him, I said. What he did with it was his inheritance. And Cassandra? She'll receive exactly what she gave, I said. Maya frowned, which is nothing that matters. A tear slid down her cheek. She swiped at it, irritated. Sorry, listening to you choose like this. I touched her hand. They wanted ownership, you offered care, those are not the same currency. From the hallway, Loretta's voice floated in. I hadn't heard the door. They lost before they even arrived, she said, leaning in the doorway. They just sued for the consolation prize. By dusk, the table was covered in small, labeled boxes, quiet landmines of memory and intent. We stacked them in the hall closet, the ones meant to be found later. I pushed Hallie's velvet pouch to the very back, behind winter scarves. Safe, I said. I believed it then. I didn't know that somewhere between my front door and that closet, someone had already decided this house owed them answers. And the next time they came in uninvited, they wouldn't be satisfied with what was written in my will. I woke up to beeping and bad lighting. Ceiling tiles, oxygen in my nose, my chest feeling like someone had tried to fold it in half. Loretta was in the chair, hair wild, relief and annoyance wrestling on her face. "Don't do that again," she said. "My heart's older than yours." "What happened?" I croaked. "Cardiac event," she said. "Ambulance, ER, ICU. While you were busy scaring nurses, the hospital flagged you as critical. That triggered the estate protocols you signed for. I had to notify the beneficiary and next of kin that transfer mechanisms had started." "Letters," I said. "Registered, hand-delivered," she replied. "You'll be getting visitors." She nodded toward the corner. Maya was asleep in the chair, shoes off, fingers still curled around my empty water cup. She looked wrung out. "She hasn't left," Loretta said. "Your son called once, gave a number in case." Across town, at Nathan's Marble Island, an envelope lay between him and Cassandra like a verdict. Loretta's letterhead, probate language. He opened it, eyes scanning fast, then stalling. "Well," Cassandra prodded, "what is it? What did she do?" He read aloud, voice flattening. "Per the terms of the Blake Living Trust, primary residential property, business assets, and designated accounts secured under restricted trust. Current sole beneficiary and co-trustee, Ms. Maya Coleman." Cassandra snatched the letter. "No," she laughed too high. "No, that's wrong. She's the help." "Loretta doesn't misprint," Nathan said quietly. Cassandra's hands shook. "We're going to fix this," she said, "now." They came into my hospital room like a gust of cold air. Nathan's eyes went to the monitor first. Cassandra went straight to the bed, letter crushed in her fist. "What is this?" she demanded. "What did you do?" "Survived," I said, "so far." "This trust," she snapped. "This says that girl," she jabbed a finger toward Maya, "gets everything. The house, the shop, the money. Who is she to you?" Maya flinched. I didn't. "She showed up," I said. "That's all it took." Loretta stepped forward with a thick binder. "You already lost one challenge," she said. "This is the rest, restricted trust, no contest clause. If you fight this again, you forfeit any scrap you might have had left. No photo frames, no sentimental leftovers, nothing." She turned the page so they could see the paragraph. "Contesting this means full disinheritance. Do you understand?" "Nath," and stared at the words. Cassandra's face crumpled. "She stole everything," she cried, pointing at Maya, who was pressed against the wall, knuckles white on the chair back. "No," I said, my voice rasping but steady. "You just never earned it." The room went very quiet. In the doorway, I saw Hallie, eyes red, hand gripping the strap of her bag, taking in her parents, Maya, me, the machines. Nathan looked at me, really looked, for the first time in years. "What do you want us to do?" he asked. I felt every breath, every beep. "For once," I said, "it's not about what I give you, it's about what you choose." And as the monitor kept time between us, I could see it. This was the moment that would decide whether they left with empty hands, or with the last thing I had left to offer them. A chance to be better than they'd been. Coming home felt stranger than waking up in the ICU. Maya pushed my wheelchair up the front steps, the old wood groaning in familiar protest. When she opened the door, the smell of flowers hit me first. They were everywhere, on the hall table, the piano, the floor, in mismatched vases, arrangements from former patients, neighbors, nurses, handwritten cards propped against them. "Thank you for sitting with my mother. You held my hand when no one else did. You don't know me, but my father talked about you for years." Not one bouquet from Nathan and Cassandra. "Looks like people noticed you didn't die," Loretta had said at the hospital. "Inconvenient for some, comforting for others." Maya wheeled me past the living room. "You sure you want to move bedrooms?" she asked. "You and the back room have history." Me and the stairs have had enough of each other, I said. Front bedroom, I want to see the street. She'd already prepared it. Fresh sheets, my nightstand, the framed photo she'd given me of my husband and me at the shop. When she helped me stand and shuffle to the bed, the afternoon light caught the dust in the air, turning it almost pretty. There, she said, arranging pillows, queen of the block. That makes you what? I asked, chief of staff. She snorted, I'll take it. Later, the doorbell rang. Maya hovered, but I waved her off. I know that knock. Hallie stepped in, clutching the small box I'd labeled months ago. Her eyes were red, but she was standing straighter than I'd ever seen her. I got your package, she said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. She opened it a crack just enough for the brass compass and my nursing pin to glint. You saw me, she whispered. They never do. I reached for her hand. I didn't choose you because I had to, I said. I chose you because you stayed, you listened, you asked who I was without asking what you'd get. She blinked hard, nodding. When she'd gone, Loretta appeared in the doorway with her ever-present folder. You got one last signature in you, she asked. I just had a heart attack, not a hand transplant, I said. What now? Minor update, she replied. Successor provisions. If anything happens to Maya or she can't serve as trustee, everything passes to Hallie. Same protections, same restrictions. You said you wanted the line of people who showed up to stay unbroken. My chest ached for more reasons than one. Write it, I said. Let the lawyers figure out the rest. As I signed, Loretta added almost casually, oh, and for your entertainment, Cassandra tried to sell your tragic betrayal story to a tabloid out of Atlanta. They passed, said there wasn't enough scandal if the victim was still alive and running fundraisers. I laughed until my ribs hurt, so even her drama got rejected. Apparently editors like proof, Loretta said, something your daughter-in-law is short on. When the house finally quieted, Maya tucked me in like I'd done for 100 patients. You okay? She asked. I looked around, the flowers, the letters, the photo, the box in Hallie's hands as she'd left, Loretta's updated pages on the nightstand. This is my family, I said. Took me 72 years to say it out loud. Maya smiled, leaning down to kiss my forehead. Then we better keep you around long enough to enjoy them. She turned off the lamp and left the door cracked. In the dark, listening to the old house breathe, I could feel it. The circle had closed. The money, the house, the stories, they were finally pointed where they belonged. Which meant I could finally turn my attention to the one thing I hadn't truly faced yet. Not who would get my life when I was gone, but how I wanted to say goodbye while I was still here to mean it. I always thought getting your affairs in order sounded cold, like turning your life into a filing cabinet. In the end, that's exactly what I did, only warmer. Maya cleared the dining table and laid out 3 things: a manila folder, my blue journal, the small wooden box I'd kept locked for years. The paperwork first, I said, before I chicken out. In the folder went my funeral wishes: no open casket, no long eulogue. Whys? A simple service, the hymn my husband loved, the nurse's prayer, a call list in my handwriting: Hallie, Carla, Janice, Margaret, the shelter, no reporters, no florist, managing the Blake legacy. Behind that, a single page labeled protected people. Names, no dollar signs. Hallie for seeing me when it cost her something. Maya for holding up the roof when everyone else only measured the square footage. Carla for remembering I mattered after the badge came off. Then the final letters, one for Hallie, one for Maya, one for Loretta's safe. I sealed them quickly before sentiment made me start over again. Paper S done, I said. Now I need dirt. Maya helped me down the back steps, my cane clicking against the stone. The garden was tired but still trying, roses stubbornly clinging to a few late blooms. I planted these when Nathan was 12, I said, running my fingers over a thorny stem. Your grandfather dug holes, I did the rest. We argued the whole time about whether anything we built would last. And Maya asked. I smiled. Looks like it did, just not always in the people we expected. We shuffled along the beds past the cracked bird bath, the patch where Hallie once buried a broken doll with full funeral honors. At the oldest rosebush we sat on the bench. This one's you, I told her, came later, rooted deep. She pulled out my blue journal, the last page marked. "You sure?" she asked. "Read it," I said. Her voice wobbled but didn't break. "You don't need to carry me, just keep the light on." We let the words sit in the cooling air, sinking into the dirt and the years. Back inside, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Maya glanced at it, jaw tightening. "Cassandra," she said, "please reconsider. We're still family no matter what you've put on paper." I held out my hand, looked at the message, then handed it back. "You know my answer." Maya deleted it, no reply, no screenshot, just gone. That evening, Loretta arrived with a leather binder thick enough to stop a bullet. "This is it," she said. "House, shop, accounts, trust, successor provisions to Hallie, no contest clause, fully executed, untouchable. If you drop dead mid-sentence, this still stands." I laughed. It didn't hurt as much as before. Then I can finally stop thinking like a lawyer. She squeezed my hand. "You did it, Evie. You put your life where it was actually lived." Later, in my front bedroom, lamp low, I listened to the old house breathe. Flowers on the dresser, my husband's flag, the article calling me matriarch, the sound of Maya in the kitchen humming off-key. "They expected to inherit everything," I whispered to the quiet, "and they got nothing they truly needed." I closed my eyes, not afraid of whatever came next. For the first time, there was nothing left for them to take and everything left for the right people to keep. I didn't give my legacy to the loudest voice. I gave it to the quietest soul who stayed.